We are less than 2 days away from the start of the 2026 Women's VNL, and I have yet to break down my Canadian women, so that is exactly what I am doing now. I've had the script written up for a while, and life got in the way, and I just wasn't able to record it when I wanted it to, so there's no time in the present right before the women get kicked off in Quebec City on Wednesday. And now, last season was a really big growing year for Team Canada women's volleyball. After the heartbreaking miss of the 2024 Paris Olympics at the 2024 VNL, this team needed a bit of a change, and they got that in the form of one of the best coaches in the world, Giovanni Guidetti. Now, Giovanni Guidetti didn't even have the entire roster at his disposal. Alexa Gray didn't play at all last summer, and then an injury to Kira Van Ryk in week 1 in Ottawa meant that she was gone for the rest of the summer, and then Brie O'Reilly also decided to take some time off as well, leaving Guidetti with a very young and inexperienced roster for the remainder of the VNL and the World Championships. And ultimately, in my opinion, I think that was a really good thing. Guidetti got a chance to mold some of these young players in the way that he wanted them to. And there was a lot of speed bumps along the way. This team finished 3-9 at the VNL. They learned a lot. And that was really apparent when they showed up for the World Championships and ended up winning 2 games, taking down Bulgaria and Spain before losing to Turkey and then the US in the round of 16. So now in Guidetti's second year, this is the roster that he will have at his disposal. On the outside, Alexa Gray is back. So is Hillary Johnson, as is Abby Guzin. You have Rhea Surinks, Emoni Bush, Maddie Saras, Thana Fayed, Hannah Duchesneau, Andrea Mitrovic, Amy Lemire, and Vicky Savard. In the setting position, you have Brie Franzen, formerly Brie O'Reilly, Brie Franzen now, Justine Colity, Quinn Palland, Courtney Baker, and Bella Noble. Down the middle, you have Emily Maglio, Ronnie Dixon, Jasmine White, Dolly Thukboom, Emma Boyd, and Jessica Andrews. On the right side, you have Akira Van Ryk, Lucy Borokowski, Logan King, and Anna Schmreck. And then in the libero position, you have Casey Yost, Delaney Watson, Olivia Andolajevic, and Katarina Georgiadis. And there's 2 big things to notice from this roster. First and foremost, the stars are back. Alexa is back in the fold. Kira Van Ryk is healthy and ready to go. And Brie, now Franzen, is ready to lead this team as well. And that's going to be big because this is a very big year for Team Canada women's volleyball. 2026, by the end of 2026, we're going to know half of the field qualified for the 2028 Olympics. The first step of qualification for the LA Olympics will be through the Continental Qualifiers or the Continental Championships happening in August. Now, everyone remembers the heartbreaking narrow miss for Canada in 2024, and they're going to want to do everything in their power to really make sure it doesn't come down to those world ranking points in 2028. So there is a very big spot up for grabs for them at the NORCECA Championships this year in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. So this team needs to be firing on all cylinders by the time they get to the Dominican Republic for those NORCECA Championships. But the thing is, there may not even be a chance to fully compete for that title because of how everything is working, and the US still being at the tournament and them already having qualified. There could be a situation where Canada and US are playing each other in the semifinals, and if Canada doesn't win that game, Dominican automatically advances because the US can't qualify, so it will go to the next highest ranked team, which would be the Dominican. And if you know anything about NORCECA volleyball, you know there could be some tomfoolery about. So if Canada doesn't end up qualifying for the 2028 Olympics through the NORCECA Championships this year, it is imperative that this summer they start building up those ranking points. When we look at the world rankings at the moment, Canada is currently sitting in 12th with basically 231 points. And there is a bit of a log jam from, 8th with 270 points to 14th with 211th. So if Canada can start picking up some wins and start crawling up the world rankings now, 3 years out from when that qualification ends, it would be a huge bonus for this team. And that's why it's so important that these stars are back, because it means that Canada will be able to compete against other higher ranked teams to be able to claw back some points, potentially getting some upsets, maybe when some of their best players aren't there, and then making sure as well that we can keep care of the lower teams so we're not losing big swaths of points and falling in the standings. Now, the second thing that's very obvious from this roster, there's a very clear, starters or first team, and then kind of a second team with the younger athletes who are going to be able to come in and grow into this program. And that is also very obvious when you're looking at the roster for week 1 in Quebec City. And the roster goes like this with 15 players on this roster. Emily Maglio is back as the captain. Kira Van Ryk, Alexa Gray, Brie Franzen. You got all the stars back. Abby Guzin is back for her second year with this team. Hillary Johnson, Andrea Mitrovic, Jasmine White, Dolly Thukboom, Jessica Andrews, Courtney Baker, Anna Schmreck, Casey Os, Olivia Andolajevic, and Kat Georgiadis closing out that roster. So those will be the 15 women who will be representing Canada in week 1 at the VNL in Quebec City. Now, breaking down this roster a little bit, I'm going to start on the outside. And the only person that we can start with is Alexa Gray. And of course, we've seen Alexa carry this team before. She is a high volume hitter, and we know she knows how to score. And I mean, looking at what she did this year in League One as well, she was the third highest scorer in the league, averaging 4.36 points per set. She was the third highest attacker in the league, averaging 3.45 kills per set. She was one of the best servers in the league as well, sitting fifth, averaging 0.241 aces per set. Alexa Gray knows how to be the center of attention on this team, and she has carried this team before. So having her back in the lineup is absolutely massive. And the thing is, there's depth after her as well. Hillary Johnson, after helping lead this team last summer, went down to Brazil to play for Minas, and she ended up the 5th highest scorer in the league with 393 points. She hit a 45.1%, which is 14th in league, with a 30.8% efficiency, which was 17th in Brazil. So to me, Hillary is a really big option to be that P2 alongside Alexa, or step in as the P1 if Alexa needs a bit of a day off. But past her, we have Andrea Mitrovic coming back, and while she did come off the bench for League One Madison, she did have a spell of games where she was absolute dynamite, got some MVPs, got a couple of 22-point appearances, and we've kind of seen this from Mitrovic before. She can come off the bench, and with her big, strong arm, she can cause some damage, and that's hopefully what she can do once again this summer. But I think one of the big players we have to look at this year and how she's going to fit into the roster is going to be 20-year-old Abigail Guzin, who's coming off a historic season for the Alberta Panthers in U Sports. She was the Canada West Player of the Year, she was the U Sports Women's Volleyball Player of the Year, and she was the U Sports Female Athlete of the Year. And that is across all sports in Canadian university sport. And then, of course, on top of that, she capped it off with the championship for the Alberta Pandas. So Guzin is a player who stepped in at just 19 years old last year in the VNL, and I'm really excited to see how she has matured and where she's going to fit in on this roster. We saw some really big flashes of brilliance where she was really aggressive at the net. She was solid in service eve, and I'm hoping that can be the case once again this year, and maybe she can compete with Johnson for that P2 spot alongside Alexa Gray. Now, it is confirmed that Guzin is going to Italy next year, and the rumors are that she's going to be headed to Chieri, which is awesome. That is a playoff team that competes in European competition, and you'd absolutely love to see it. She'd be the first Canadian woman to head from U Sports to the Lega Volley Femminile, the best league in women's volleyball. And, with the offensive powerhouses that Alexa and Kira are, I think one of the big things is going to be that P2 position needs to be able to pass the ball. If they can pass the ball, if they can help this team in service even, let's be very real here, the kind of ethos of Canadian volleyball is that we're really not that good in serve receive, so we teach our players how to hit high out-of-system balls. That's just the nature of Canadian volleyball internationally. If Guzin or Johnson or Mitrovic can step in and be a good, solid serve-receive player, keep Brie in system so that we can open up the rest of the offense, that is going to add a lot to this team, especially with the middles we have, right, on this roster. Emily Maglio, I mean, she is a consummate professional. She just stays quiet, puts her head down, and works hard, match in and match out all the time. That's why she is the captain of this team. And while she didn't play as much this year for Beşiktaş in the Turkish Sultanlar Ligi, she was still featured for this team and helped a lot with them at the Final Four in the Champions League. And she's someone, especially when you run that 31 with her, who can really help open up the offense. If you're running that 31 with Maglio, maybe open up some room on the backside and then overload with Alexa over top. That's exactly why passing well is going to be so important for who is ever in that P2 position. Casey Yost is a very good serve receiver, and typically we've seen teams overload Alexa in serve receive. But if they're going to go after that P2 position, whoever's there needs to be able to keep that ball in a positive position to be able to allow Bree to run the offense. Because alongside Maglio, you've got Doli Thukbum, and physically, there's not many middle blockers or just blockers, period, who can compete with Doli at the net. She had a very good season in Italy, coming in off the bench for Valafolia and learning the game at that level. And as I mentioned, offensively, she's very, very good, but she's still learning the reading side of game at an international or an elite level. So if we can open some things up in the offense with Maglio and with Thukbum, and also with Jasmine White, who had a pretty strong season for Houston. I mean, she came in off the bench, but when you're playing behind Raffaele Folli and Amber Agietti, an Olympian for Italy and one of the most impactful middles in the world right now, I think that's naturally going to happen. But White is also just a very steady player whose floor is really, really high, and she has the ability to start or can come in off the bench at any point. And I think, her steadiness down the middle is going to be really needed over the course of this year. But the upside that Doli Thukbum brings, you can't ignore it. You're going to have to give her some minutes and really put some time into her. So I'm really hoping that, what she learned last year with this roster, what she learned this year in Italy, and then what she's going to be able to do under year 2 of one of the best coaches in the world. I'm really hoping that blocking side, where their reading is more of an issue, it's not a physical issue at all with Thukbum, it's more of a reading struggle. I'm really hoping that is going to be able to show up on the court a little bit more this year. Rounding out the middles, we also have Jess Andrews, and while she did have a pretty good year at Bowling Green, I don't really expect to see her that much in the roster this year in the VNL. Next up, we have the setters. First and foremost, Bree is back. And when Bree is at the top of her game, she can be one of the best setters in the world. She can spread that offense out. She can be a leader on the court. Her coming into this roster around 2019 is really what helped Team Canada take that next step. Alexa was already around, Kira was up and coming, but Bree stepping in to be that leader in the setter position is really what helped Canada take that next step and starting to be competitive with the top teams in the world. And now she took the summer off last year. She went and got married, took some time off to herself. And I mean, there's a lot of pressure when you're playing for the national team. And it seems like some of these girls put a lot of pressure on themselves to qualify for the Olympics, and when they didn't, I know it was a bit of a heartbreak. So I love the fact that she was able to take some time off, take some time for herself, go regroup, and come back even stronger this year. She had a pretty good season this year for League One Austin. She split time with former Team USA starting setter Carly Lloyd, but at the end of the day, when this team needed a win in the finals, they went to Brie Franzen and she got the job done. And that's just the type of player Brie is. And they're going to need her to be that player this summer if they're going to want to start racking up points to make their way up the world rankings and also compete for that spot at the Olympics at the NORCECA Championships in August. Now, Courtney Baker is the backup for Brie. I am a little bit surprised because we mostly saw Quinn Pelland last year, but Baker was featured a little bit as well. She's big, she's physical, she delivers the ball well, and I think she's going to be really good coming in that double subs position. I don't expect to see her too much as a starter. That's mostly going to be Brie, so I think it's mostly going to be Courtney Baker coming in as the double sub alongside Anna Schreck. Now in the opposite position, where got to start with Kira Van Rijk. I mean, Kira for me is one of the best opposites in the world, probably just outside of the Elite Five. And she's basically the only non Elite Five opposite who's been able to capture a major trophy when her and Guidetti won the Turkish Sultanlar Ligi in 2024 and 2025 with Vakifbank. Kira Van Rijk, she has the shots, but she also has the arm. She is one of the hardest hitters in women's volleyball, both on the court offensively and from the baseline. And her serve is a big part of her game. And, we saw her go absolutely off last year in week 1 for this Canadian team. And now the fact that Alexa is back and there's some other players who have matured and maybe they can get the middle running, she won't have to carry such a big load. She can stay a little bit healthier and really perform when needed. She's won back-to-back championships. Like she won with Vakifbank in 24-25, and then she won again this year for Shanghai. And while the Chinese league doesn't give awards to foreigners, it sounds like she was one of the best players for the Shanghai and in the league this year. So I'm really excited what she can bring to the table for this team this season. Kira is rumored to be going to Skandici next year, which would be absolutely huge. She'd be stepping into some massive shoes in Katerina Antropova. But I think with a good showing this summer, Skandici fans will be very excited about what Kira can bring to the table next year in the Italian leg of volley. Behind her, you have Anna Schreck, and Schreck is one of the most imposing players in women's volleyball at 205 centimeters or 6'9". She is the biggest athlete in women's volleyball, and last year was a big learning step for her, playing the minutes she did, taking on the load that she did. I think she did a pretty good job. I was honestly pretty impressed. She split her time this year between Askago and Egzashibashi in the Turkish league, and while she mostly came in off the bench, she did drop 26 points this year, and then was also featured in a double sub for Egzashibashi in the Champions League Final Four. Now, I don't know if we're going to see Schreck play in a starting role all that much. I'm expecting to see, a sprinkling of matches here and there, but I do expect to see her come in as a double sub on the regular. She's 6'9". She's one of the most imposing blocks in the world. She was one of the top blockers in the VNL last year in the top 20. So I'm expecting her to come in and to provide a block when needed. And then finally in the libero position, you have Casey Yost, Olivia Andalajevic, and Kat Georgiadis. And I mean, I think Casey Yost is hands down the starter. She had a pretty good season this year for the ladies in Block Aachen in the Bundesliga. And she has really been the go-to for this team in the libero position for a number of years. And she was also one of the best passers in the VNL last year as well. I am interested to see this team travel with 3 liberos. And to me, that means there's a bit of a question mark on who is going to be that L2, whether it's going to be Georgiadis or Andalajevic. So I'm interested to see if it's going to be 3 liberos for the rest of the summer or if it's just going to be for week 1 in Quebec City. But regardless, I do think Casey Yost is going to be that L1. And I think she's got a really important position, right? Especially if teams are targeting Alexa quite a bit. Can she take away enough court to be able to relieve her some enough and get this team into system? I think it is going to be so important to get this team in system on serve receive, because one of the best parts of Canada's game is going to be their serve and block. So if they can get their serve and block down to be able to steal some points, and they can get their serve receive going so the side out game is solid too, this is going to be a very difficult team to handle. Now, as I mentioned, this is a huge year for Team Canada in just the context of the Olympics, but also I think this team should really start focusing to try to qualify for their first ever VNL finals. Typically, I think we only see like 1 or 2 playoff positions that are really available at the VNL finals, right? There's generally the top 6 or 7 teams that are always going to be at the finals that can always field a really good squad. So if Canada can be above 500, and that's going to be the mark last year, all of the teams who made the finals had at least a 7-5 record. So if Canada can be at least 6-6 or even better, 7-5, 8-4 maybe, that would be awesome. I would love to see them go compete in the finals and start making their way up the world rankings. And then, of course, this is all in a position to be able to go compete at the end of the year at the NORCECA Championships. And I really think that week 1 is going to be very indicative of how well Canada is going to do. This is a very tough pool that they're in. This is a very tough schedule. They have Germany, USA, France, and Japan. Germany, USA, and Japan all made the playoffs last year. So that is already very difficult. France is another team who is also very good. They were 5-7 last year and have some very good players. So if the Canadian women are able to defend home court in Quebec City, where I'm hoping the crowds are going to be very loud and rabid supporting this Canadian team, I think that really sets the tone for the rest of the summer. If this team can go 2-2 or even 3-1, maybe, that would be absolutely massive for Team Canada down the stretch. But if they don't, I still have full confidence this team can figure things out over the course of the VNL. And I'm going to be very interested to see what this team looks like in week 1 compared to week 3. Because as I said, I think there's only really one spot available in the VNL finals, and there's probably about 4 or 5 teams who are going to be competing for it. And I really think Canada is in a good spot, especially bringing all the stars back. We know that Kira and Alexa can score points. We know Brie can run the offense, and everyone else has really stepped up their game after a big growing season last year. I'm really excited to see Team Canada go out there, establish themselves as a team to watch out for this season, and then go and grab an Olympic spot later on this year at the North Sea Championships. But first, it's going to start in Quebec City.